make sure the stream is where I want it to be. There we go. And it should be, there we are. Awesome. And it's being weird again. Go on in. Let's see. Miss Mims, right? Okay, yeah, some of my people from Monday, Wednesday switched to Tuesday, Thursday, and vice versa, so it's fine. It's the first day, don't worry about it. Okay. So, we're back, 102. I think I've got a few people in here who are new. How many people haven't had me before? Nobody? Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Then at least this much will be new for you. Everybody else has already essentially seen this. I use basically the same PowerPoint for the intro days. So, as usual, let me get this door because it doesn't like to stay where I want it to be. We're going to go over the intro for the class and then the syllabus and see if you guys have any questions, and then we'll be done. So, easy day today. Also, for you folks online, because I'm also recording this for online, I have a couple of addendums for you guys, in particular when it comes to the papers. So I'll refer to that specifically when we get there. Okay. All right. So, again, this is 102, the second part of American history. If you didn't have the first part, don't worry about it. It's pretty self-contained. In fact, when I was teaching upstate, I didn't teach 101. I only taught 102, so I'm actually more used to this than I am that first section. But I mean, the basic part of this is, so the Civil War happened, and we're moving on. We start with Reconstruction, so that's all you need to know is the Civil War happened, and everything after this is pretty much the fallout of that. So yeah, I'm Professor Holt, Riley Holt, Mr. Holt. I don't care what you call me, not doctor, because I don't have a doctorate. That would be nice, but. So, for those of you that haven't been here before, I'm quite sarcastic. Don't take anything I say too seriously, unless I'm like telling you when stuff is due, because that's usually pretty serious. I make some awful references now and then, and when I get into things, sometimes my language might be a bit more crass than what is considered professional, but most of you have had me before, you know this, you'll be all right. But for the most part, I don't do security anymore. I haven't changed that from this slide. As long as you show up and do the work, you'll be fine. And by do the work, I mean show up and like be awake through class. I'll talk more about the tests and stuff when we get there, but as long as you're here and getting the information off the PowerPoints, you've got the information for the tests. I'm not doing like some professors do, where it's like 50% is from the notes and the other 50% is from the book, and if you don't read the book, you're screwed. We don't play that here. We'll talk about the book in a little bit. It's good to have the book, but I'm not going to fail you for not having the book. I've literally had professors like, if you don't bring your book to class, you're getting points off. I don't know. I'm not that pedantic. Right. So we talk about what history is. Again, you've also kind of been here before. Um, we are going to talk about the Spanish-American War. In fact, that's to me one of the most interesting parts of this semester, due to the fallout of that. So, who, what, where, when, why, and how, as opposed to battles and names and dates. I mean, battles are going to be important, especially for a Spanish. Well, we don't really talk about any specific battles with the Spanish-American War. We talk about an event, the main, but I'm not going to ask you to give me the date on that. I very rarely ask you for dates. Anyway, so who were involved? Well, America and Spain. Okay, that one's easy. What happened? They had a war. Where was it? Mostly Cuba. We'll talk about some other islands as well, in particular the Philippines. I've got a whole thing about the Philippines. That to me is actually more interesting than what happens in Cuba because, well, we'll get to that. I don't need to spoil things. When did it happen? 1898. That one's, again, not super important. It did happen during the summer, because when the heavy rains hit in Cuba, the mosquitoes come out, and if you're in a tropical area with mosquitoes, they're carrying disease. So that's a whole separate thing. So the why and how, is the reason why we study history. There was economics, the belief that Cuba should be free of Spain. That one's, I mean, there is that, but also what ends up happening after that. Imperialism, which is its own thing. And that's, again, why we're here. Because they're usually, I'm not going to ask you, why did America and Spain go to war? Because that's not a multiple choice, choose the correct answer kind of answer. That's something that you would write a paper on. And that, again, is kind of why we're here. That's what history is about. I talked about the historical lens last semester, but again, those of you that might not have been here, when we look at history from the modern day, the way we see history is slightly different based on what's currently going on. So during the Cold War, a lot of people viewed history in shades of that. So I talked about Napoleon because that's my 104 course, which we got past Napoleon last semester, but it doesn't matter. And you see that Napoleon did eventually fail, and then if you could compare him to, the USSR, then maybe eventually the USSR would fail, and that's because that's what we were hoping for without a big war. Modern times, we deal more with social equality and the differences between classes of people and how they were treated. So you can look back, again, specifically this is Napoleon, but if you want to just do American history, different eras of American history, like how long it took for women to even be able to vote. It was after World War I for us. Maybe there were earlier eras where women were a little bit better off than they were later on. And then the poor people, because history is often about the important generals and the presidents and the people at the top. But it's also a good idea to see sort of what's happening on the ground level, because that's kind of a truer position of where the world was then. Because the stock market's doing great, everybody must be doing fine economically. No, the stock market doesn't have much of anything to do with those of us that aren't involved with it. So the point is that these ways of looking at history aren't wrong, it just changes based on the time. You can't be trying to make sure I get the two correct. You can't really be objective with history. It's always going to be subjective. It's always going to be based on your own personal bias. The history itself doesn't change, but what we focus on does. obviously, why we doing history. It's important. If you get it, cool. Don't worry about it. But why do we care about this war that lasted like 6 months? America beating up on Spain when Spain had basically already lost. Spain's not really a world player anymore. America is still very much imperialistic, but we'll get into that later too. But it is still our legacy, and it's important to see the patterns of history because it tends to happen again. And humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We see patterns in things, and especially when that pattern starts to show itself again, sometimes it's good to see what people in the past did because we haven't changed that much. I mean, if you want to really just look at the psyche of humans, I mean, the Romans 2,000 years ago were making dick jokes. So, like, humanity hasn't changed that much, guys. Well, I say the Romans, the Greeks before them, too. The Greeks, a lot. We're all about their, penis. So, yeah, humanity hasn't changed a lot. So we got American imperialism, the World Wars, the Cold War, all that. Why are we worried about all this stuff in between? Because, I mean, we're going to start with the Reconstruction, which personally to me is one of the most dull parts of American history. So on the plus side, we're getting it out of the way first. On the negative, we're starting with that. But it's still important. It's important to see how the country was rebuilt after the Civil War and what problems that will create for the future. I talked about this last time. It's an incomplete story. It'd be Lord of the Rings with just the fight scenes, which is all well and good, especially if you're using the extended edition. That's still several hours of people beating the crap out of each other. But knowing why is important. Why are these wars happening? Why are people killing each other? If you don't know, then what's the point? So again, the histories and patterns, you can't just look at one section and be done with it. That's why if you've ever seen a documentary on any event in history, they tend to start several decades before the thing happened. Like if you wanted to see if there was a documentary on, say, why World War I started, it wouldn't start with, and then this Austrian dude got shot in the face. It starts with, like, Germanic pressures from, like, the late 1800s. You can't just start with, and then the thing happened and we're moving on. The Civil War, which, you know, had the entire last semester behind it, we didn't quite get there, but we're pretty familiar with the Civil War. The destruction of the South's economy, the Reconstruction, and with the war over, a lot of Americans started heading west, which caused its own issues. Organization, movement, industry, and farms, so we started getting the Industrial Revolution proper here in America in the late 1800s. Immigrants began coming over due to the opportunity America created. And then we began going to war like Europe, not just World War I and World War II, but like the Spanish-American War. That was a war for taking land and taking power. I mean, the Mexican-American War especially, where we just like took a bunch of land from Mexico from the start. There was no, oh, we're just defending our people. It's like, no, we're going to carve up all this land. So yeah, we've got a ways to go, but this is, like I did for you guys last semester, this is essentially the whole semester right here, is Reconstruction to the end of World War II, beginning of the Cold War. If I can get things to time correctly, we will have a little movie at the end of the semester that covers the Cold War, because we're not going to really have time to go over everything as far as notes, but it's a really good look into the culture and just like the view of America, the view of the regular people during the Cold War. It's real interesting. And if we have extra time, we'll watch Dr. Strangelove too, because that's a hell of a movie. All right. So, if history's patterns, then it can predict the future. Well, not really. But it does help us avoid mistakes of the past, like a land war in Russia. Don't do that. Because we are standing on the shoulders of giants. We do have the past setting the foundation for today, and we are setting the foundation for the future. And, of course, if you really want to broaden it, history can be traced by its wars, and war never really changes. Aha. Okay. So, what do? Come to class. That's makes it easy for everybody. There is an attendance policy thing, again, for those of you that either weren't here last semester or have forgotten over the course of the month. That's 2 weeks consecutive, so if you miss, it's technically 4 days, but 4 class days. If you miss 2 weeks in a row, maybe let me know what's going on. I'll just assume you stopped showing up to class. But if you miss like a day next week, and then a day after that, and then like 2 days at the end of the semester, I'm not going to just suddenly drop you from class. That's not how that works. It's got to be like you're not showing up for half a month. And I'm so, well, are you still in my class, or can I take you off the roll and not have to worry about it anymore? It's good to read the material. This is the first edition again, isn't it? Yours probably won't look like this. Exploring American Histories, Volume 2, after 1865. Everything that is going to be on the board, except for maybe a few things out, and I'll let you know if there's stuff on there that I've pulled for myself. It's all coming from the book. So if you want to get an idea of what we're going to be doing, just read ahead a little bit. If you miss a day, just read ahead a little bit. And I will put the PowerPoint stuff on Blackboard once we're done with each chapter, but if you want to be keeping up while we're doing it, just take a look at the book. It helps out. And I usually thumb through the book as we're going. Sometimes there will be quotes in here that I don't necessarily have on the PowerPoint that I'll read because it's good to use quotes. I like using quotes. But I'm not going to ask you to bring your book to class. Unless you will to. You're welcome to. Obviously do the work because I can't grade stuff you don't do. I can grade it, but it's not going to be a grade you want. Do the exams, do the papers. We'll talk about those specifically in a little bit. And again, ask questions. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. You can ask me in class. I would prefer you ask me in class because I'm sure if you've got a question, then other people will as well. But if you don't want to do that, you can ask me after class or come in a little bit early because I'm typically here earlier for my 8:30 class. Or just email me, which we'll get to right here. Depending on what day it is, if it's during the week, I'll usually check it at a decent time. If we've got time off, I might be sleeping in, but I will check the emails pretty much every day. I've had students email me over the weekend and be like, I'm sure you might not see this until Monday. It's like, it's right. I've got my computer, and the email comes to my computer. So I check my email right out at hold@fmarion.edu. For those of you online, which we'll talk more about this in a minute, if you need to, when you send in your papers, email them to me. For those of you here, I prefer you bring them in physically, but if you can't, just email it to me. As an attached document, Google Drive does not always work. In fact, the Francis Marion email system catches that and quarantines it, and then eventually lets me know. It's like, hey, by the way, you've got some emails here that we didn't send to you. So yeah, if you're going to send me something, just attach it, either a Word document or like a PDF, just something that I can get my hands on. As I said, sometimes I sleep in, and then I'm going to be up late that night. So I might get your email at 2 in the morning, or if you do send me an email at 2 in the morning, I might get it, unless it's during the week, because I'm going to try to sleep during the week. This is an early class, you guys. See, on days we're not meeting, I might be sleeping in. Because I certainly was yesterday with all the rain. It's like, well, I don't have to come in, so I'm just going to sleep. Also, I can't forgive this weird-haired guy and his alien nonsense. All right. So, let's pull up the syllabus. And rather than try to get that to work for the thing, I'm just going to put it up here. Okay. So, where's my mouse? Syllabus, again, this is not that much different. In fact, I need to change it to 2024. Again, those of you that were here last semester, the syllabus is not really any different. Those of you that haven't had me before, I haven't looked over all the roster for the online, so some of you online folks might be new. Some of the wording here is a little bit more aggressive than I would have because I borrowed and adapted another professor's syllabus. So when it's stuff like, I will not accept whatever, it's like, it's probably cool. I'm a bit more laid back. So yeah, we've got the hard copy strongly suggested, not required, but it will be useful. Let's see, please show up to class. I don't like, oh yeah, I do, did get rid of that. I don't have like an attendance grade. That's another, some professors just give themselves too much work, I think. The essays. So, again, those of you that have me, you know how this works. Those of you that haven't, we're going to have 2 essays for the semester. One's going to be around the midpoint of this semester, so, I don't know, March, I guess, or maybe late February, because we only have until the end of April. And then the final paper will be the last day of class. I will have the syllabus and an addendum for my online folks, and the topic up on Blackboard as soon as I can. If I remember right, what was the default topic for the first one? Oh, it was about the progressive era. So, like, basically when Teddy Roosevelt was doing his thing and stuff was changing. We'll get to it in like a month. But basically, it's... Actually, I can look at it right now. What chapters was it? We start on chapter 14. It's chapter 19. Progressivism, the Search for Order. Basically looking at this change in history and what part you think was the most interesting. I'm not going to give you anything real specific there. I'm going to let you choose. And as usual, if you want to do something else entirely, you're welcome to. Anything from Reconstruction to late 1800s, early 1900s for that first section. Let's see. Please bring them in on the day they're due. That's useful. If you're here in person, obviously, if you can bring them to me, that'd be great. If not, you can email them to me. This is a little bit aggressive. Don't handwrite them. I've had that happen like once, and it was weird. And as far as spelling and grammar, just make sure I can tell what you're saying. We've been over that. But again, for any people that might be new. We'll discuss the papers more as we get closer, but 2 to 3 pages, double spaced. Make sure you give me your works cited. MLA citations, and you'll be fine. I mean, again, most of you who have had me, I don't grade real hard for the papers, so it's not going to be real difficult. Some professors are real rough on the papers. In fact, I probably would get in trouble with how easy I go on you guys for the papers, but it's just easier for me when I have upwards of 120 students. Let's see. For the tests, there will be 2 or 3. We'll see how good we go with that. Multiple choice and short answer. You've seen that. Again, the short answer isn't me trying to get an essay out of you. Just give me the answer. And then the final exam will be identical to the other test in terms of it being multiple choice, short answer, 50 questions, they're 2 points apiece, and it will not be cumulative. It will be whatever we've had since the previous test. So it's not going to be any different than any other test. It's easier for everybody. I did an essay question thing one time. This was when COVID hit and we just suddenly had to not be here, and I had to figure out how to do a test in a way that people couldn't just like open their notes and cheat off of. So we did essays, and it was a nightmare to grade, so never again. Right. Behave in class. Plagiarism. Good God, do not do plagiarism. It's a lot of work for me, and it will very likely, the bottom rung of what will happen to you if you plagiarize, if you just copy your stuff to make a paper, you will fail the paper. Next level, you're not in this class anymore. Level after that, it goes to the dean, and it may well affect like your college prospects going forward, because plagiarism is a big deal. Don't do it. At the very least, it's a lot of work for me, because I have to send forms to people and this, that, and the other. I've literally had like 3 people give me the same paper one time. It's like, hey, this is word for word the same paper. This is a problem. If you don't cite something correctly, that's technically plagiarism, but I'm just going to be like, hey, if you miscited this, do better next time. Like, I'm not going to destroy you because you didn't cite something correctly. But if you do take information directly from a book or something online, just put quotes around it and then put a citation at the end. And not only will you have done it correctly, but I'm going to grade you better for using citations and quotations correctly, because that's impressive. That's what you're supposed to do when you're doing historical writing. So don't be afraid to use someone's words. Just make sure you don't pretend it's your words. Let's see. If you need academic accommodations, I've gotten a couple of emails about that. Let me know specifically what you'd like. Most of it was like extra time for the exams, which you have the entire class period for that. But if you need more time than that, we have a testing center, and you're welcome to use that. Otherwise, just let me know. I'm not gonna be. Why? I don't know why someone would be a hard ass about academic accommodations, but I'm certainly not gonna be. Okay, the addendum. There's my email again. I had it again at the top, so if you haven't gotten my email, there it is. I don't have an office, so if you need to talk with me outside of class, just let me know. We have sort of an adjunct corner over. Let's see, I always forget the terms. Over that way, near the front office. Grades, again, you'll have the exams and the papers. That's the 4. That includes the final. Oh, yeah. So they're all weighed the same. Again, I'm not going to be like, by the way, the final exam, this one exam is 50% of your grades. So if you screw this up and you've done fine the rest of the semester, you're out of luck. I don't do that. But since they're all weighed the same, I'll drop one out of all these grades. I can't drop the final. I'm going to look into that maybe next year and see about that. So come for the final, but if you do bad on a test, I can drop that. If you don't do the first paper, I can drop it, but make sure you give me a paper. Jeez, the amount of times I've had, like, in the semester, people sending me papers, it's like, this paper was due 3 months ago. But if you don't do any papers, that's the 0 I can't drop, so don't do that. Make sure you do at least one of them. But the way this works is so that if you mess up on a test, we can throw it out as long as you do the rest of the work. But if you're doing well for the semester, if you did your test and you did fine, because, again, you guys know I'm not that difficult with the test, and you do the first paper, and you're happy with that, you can skip the second paper, which means less for me to grade, but also you won't have a paper due at the very end of the semester when all your other classes have stuff due, because that's just going to be how it works. So it helps everybody. And if you want to be really OCD and do all of it, I'll just drop whatever's lowest. So, even though I've had some students where it's like, oh, well, I'll drop this 99 for you. Jesus. Exams, again, we already talked about that. Short answer, multiple choice. They will come from the lecture. I've not really been much on primary source readings. Primary source is something from the time. So like if we had, say if we're talking about the Civil War, and we had a diary from one of the soldiers, that's the primary source. What's up? Oh, okay, no, you're good. If you need to, I'm not going to do attendance quizzes because, again, that's just extra work. I don't know what it is with Kaufman. If you don't make it to an exam day, that's fine. We have a testing center, again, over by the office. We can take care of that whenever you're able to. But make sure that you let me know when you're going to be able to take it again. Like if you're bad sick and you don't know when you're going to be able to get back, fine. But when you do come back, talk to me about getting the test done, because I have to bring it up there and make sure that they know you're going to be there. I'm not just going to leave them a bunch of tests and have people come in that maybe aren't supposed to be there and take the test. So it's still up to you to let me know when you're going to be able to retake, or not retake, but make up an exam. Final exam, not cumulative. Oh, and this, we'll talk more about this for the final. But during finals week, if a day doesn't work for you, as long as it's in one of the days that I'm having an exam, which I have 3, so it's usually going to be that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you can come in on a different class's day to take your exam if you need to. It's not a big deal. Some people like going on vacation at the end of that week and need to take it earlier, or maybe aren't able to take it that Wednesday and need to take it later, so whatever. Just when we get there, we'll talk more about it. I don't know exactly when. I don't know exactly when the exams are. The exam dates are always something we get told in the middle of the semester. But we'll get to that. Let's see. Papers and essays, we already talked about that. I typically get the information, again, from the textbook. You are more than welcome and, in fact, encouraged to not do the default topic and do something else, something that you're interested in. Theodore Roosevelt's one of my most favorite characters in American history. He's an interesting guy, and we're going to talk about him a lot. You're more than welcome, just like I don't want to talk about the Progressive Era. That sounds boring. Let's talk about Teddy Roosevelt or another president or this is the time of the various barons of industry. So you've got, Edison and Vanderbilt and all of that. So there's a lot of people you can talk about. Or events, whatever. Plagiarism, don't do that. I used to have a schedule for like when we'd be doing stuff, and I quickly found out that that rarely worked. So the test will be every 3 chapters. After we finish the third, because again, we start on chapter 14, if I remember right? Yeah. So 14, 15, 16, first test. 17, 18, 19, second test, etc. Obviously, I'll remind you as we get closer that we'll be having a test soon. Right, this is important, especially for you online folks. If you send me an email with a paper and I can't open it, and I don't mean like my computer won't open it, but if it's a Google Word doc and it's like you need to send a request to have permission to view this thing, I'm going to tell you I can't view it. I usually send the request anyway, but it's much easier if you just attach the Word document or a PDF. PDF's fine. I can read a PDF just fine. Attach it and send it via email. Don't just hit share and assume that I get it, because a lot of times I won't. Technically, I'm supposed to take off 10 points per day. I'm usually not that aggressive about it, but I will grade you more harshly if you give me a paper late. Again, for you online folks, send me email at my email address. And again, those of you here, if you can't get your stuff printed out, you can email it to me as well. It's just going to take me longer. Actually, where is it at? Yes. Where's it at? Email papers asked via the paper, yada, yada, yada. I like to grade them in person. For those of you online, you're not. This isn't about you. So if you email it to me, I'm going to get to that later than if they were handed in person, because it's a lot easier just to have them physically here in my hand than combing through my emails. And if you just tell me, oh, well, you must not have gotten my email, and use that to give yourself more time, I'm not going to be as harsh as Kaufman and be like, well, I'm just going to take points off every day that you're late, regardless of whether you sent it or not. Just try to make it easier for me to get my hands on. Because again, if you just hit share, I'm not necessarily going to get it. Awesome. Okay. I think that's mostly it. Yeah, if you're physically here, just try to hand it in. If not, just email it. I'm a bit more okay with excuses, which is to say, if you're sick, you don't have to bring me a doctor's note. Because if you're not here for class, that's on you. Again, I will be putting the PowerPoints up on Blackboard once we're done with each PowerPoint. But it will be up to you to get the notes. I've had students ask me, it's like, hey, can you send me the notes? Like, no, I put the PowerPoints up on Blackboard after the fact, but I'm not just going to like send, I mean, I don't have notes to send you. It's all right here. Let's see, again, some of these are a bit more aggressive than I would be. And that's mostly it. Any questions from you guys about anything? All good? I mean, again, all but one of you have done this before, so. That's it. Normally, I'll be keeping you closer to 9:45, but we're done. If you have any questions, let me know, email me, etc., and I'll see y'all next week.